Here. Seven. Come on. Enter. There it is, 27021, 264643, 264643. Okay, morning, T-Von. That's it.
Moved by the White House's full press vote Walsh out of committee.
It's 679, and 812 quarters, 679 and 812. Okay, get rid of that. That. Okay. 480, 480, 480. There we go. By the way, I looked up retail sales. I'm updating that database now, but retail sales for April, only a 52% probability of closing higher. So it's got a slight update bend to it, but we're gonna close it up to a little bit. So this is 249, 480. 480. Small gap, 480. Let's see what we got going here. That's this, 480. Right there at this big level that we had to get through, 480. There's that. Get rid of that. Delete that. Since I go ahead and edit. Edit. Get rid of that. X. There you go. I'm going to X that. X that. I thought I did that. X that. There we go. 480, 480. Now here. That. Rid of that. Change that to gold.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday, April 21st, 2026. New day, fresh start.
Jesus.
Welcome to the Pitbull Traders Morning Game Plan. I'm your host, Manny. The purpose of the show is simple. Live futures trading,
60,
real-time technical analysis, and
save.
actionable setups, all with a focus on mindset and disciplined execution. Every day we'll come in with one goal: build out the structure before the open so that we're operating in alignment with the dominant forces of the day. So we're not guessing, we're not chasing. All right, so let's map it out. Lockout rally continues. Yesterday we had another, although price gapped down at the open, it pretty much just went sideways and higher into the close, right? So pretty much it's a straight up move. The strength and the velocity of this move has been something to see, right? I'm not sure when I don't remember when was the last time I saw a rally of this magnitude and such a directionally biased move. I mean, sellers just getting run over. Think about it. Right, there should have been many areas here. This is a 4-hour time frame, which is the focus always at the start of our day. The 4-hour time frame, that's a straight line move. It doesn't get any straighter than that. I think there was one analog that showed another move similar in '99, but this move has just been awesome. You can see here I have some numbers penciled in. I'll go over those in a minute, but so. The question has to be, all right, so we know that this is going to pull back at some point, right? And I think our job here is to try to figure out where does it pull back to, and where would it, if we do pull back and when we do pull back, what would tell us that, hey, this is a high that we need to trade against, rather than looking for a higher low support for a move and a resumption of the trend.
Yes.
Okay. And one thing I was eyeing up before the open was, all right, so you kind of see I have some small, Elliott wave numbers
open
drafted in here, and they're not they're penciled in simply because I am not an Elliott wave trader. However, I do like Elliott wave on higher time frames to kind of align, kind of give me an idea for the structure. If you're not aware, if you're not familiar with Elliott wave tends to move pretty much a 30,000 foot explanation of Elliott wave would be, you typically get a 5-wave move in one direction, followed by a 3-wave counter trend move, and then a resumption of that trend. And there are different degrees to Elliott wave, but we won't get into that here. However, coming off of the low, right, we had we made the low at 63, it was 63.60, and then we breached it by 7 points, 63.53, look below and fail, off to the races. Okay, so we had this impulse, this first wave up, this move up, that was immediately retraced. It pulled back to half of the move. So this move up came back, and this was a half back pullback, which held, and then it was a resumption of the trend higher. Okay. At that time, we were looking, as we should have been looking, for a lower high to maintain this trend. And when we breached that high, which took us a few days, and we spoke about it here live while it was happening, we knew that if we got above the 6580 to 6600 area, that we were going to see a change in the hourly trend. All right, let's not get too boring and too granular with that stuff. So what I am going to share here is why I think that we are closer to a pullback than ever before. Okay, so really quickly, we're just going to map out. We had this first move off the low, and that move came and pulled back. We know that was a half back pullback, and you can see here by this light blue dotted line that then at the resumption of the trend, the market made a measured move higher to its 100% extension off the low. Okay, don't want to get too technical, but all right, so follow my progression. So from this pullback, we had another pullback on the gap down Sunday night. So the rally continued, and we gapped down on that Sunday night, and that gap 2 weeks ago was bought. Okay, that gap was bought. We closed the gap, and that was the day that we had that explosive rally that caught everybody off guard. Right, I remember it was 156, 160 points off the Sunday night low. Amazing move. We were trading it long all day long, and we crushed it. It was really, really good day. Really good, really lucrative week. All right, so moving forward. So we have the move off the low that completed a 100% extension, and then what happened that Sunday night? We gapped down on bad news, and the market bulls were waiting for that gap down, and they bought it with hands and fists. All right. So now, from that pullback low, which was 2 Sundays ago, we have now completed another 100% extension. Okay. So that looks a lot like this move, right? Where we completed the 100% extension, and then the market started to go sideways again. So let's just be on alert for that, right? Because we could either get what? A pullback, right? Where price pulls back, and we'll talk about where some of those levels would be, or we could get what? The less liked version, which is a pullback in time, right? So where market just drifts sideways, oscillators catch up, moving averages catch up, and then there's a resumption of the trend. So let's just be on alert for that. Obviously, we're going to stick with the dominant trend, which is a bullish trend, and we'll talk about more about what we need to see going into today in just a few minutes. All right. So that being said, where could price pull if we do get a pullback? Where does it make sense that we have to start looking for? We would be looking for a higher low. Okay, so we're looking for a 4-hour chart. We would be looking for a higher low. Where are the potential areas that make sense for the market to pull back? Okay, so the first and the most obvious and would be the most bullish outcome is if the market pulls back to the prior all-time high, which is highlighted here by this gray rectangle, right? 70-40 area. So 70-43 to about 70, we call it 70-40, 70-50, right? Okay.
1 second.
So does the market pull back?
That's right.
Test the prior day's high, test the prior all-time high, chop around a little bit, and then continue? Or do we come down, maybe put in an inverted head and shoulders,
There's the morning
come
gap
down
stats.
here, come back up, form a higher low, and then skyrocket.
I'll move this up
That's
here.
the first level that we need to be on alert for. The second level down would be this descending trend line, which also lines up really well with what would be an hourly trend change, right? So in order for this 4-hour trend, this 4-hour trend to change, bears would have to get it below this prior high. Anything above there, anything above this level, let me just make sure I have the exact price. Yep. So let's call that 68.90 to 6,900. Anything above here, above 68.90 to 6,900 is higher low territory. It also lines up really well with this descending trend line. So let's be on alert for that. See, we have the descending trend line, prior all-time highs, and this move here would also have wave symmetry. So let's be on alert for that. So in order to see an hourly trend change, price would have to come down, breach 6,900, and then with a close below it. Then that would tell us, hey, you know what? We're going possibly for a half back pullback or a deeper pullback than anticipated. Until then, and then that's when we can start selling risk and start looking for short trade.
I wanted to get
on the higher time frame. But for now, the levels to keep on our radar are the prior all-time high, the descending trend line, which lines up really well with the prior high at 6,900 and what would be the hourly trend change. All right, so that's a bigger picture. Let's get more granular. Let's look at what we have going into today. So first, let's review what we did yesterday. So last night, typical, right? Last 2 Sundays, we opened up, gap down, price gap down, and bulls were up. Bulls were there, ready, hand and fist to buy them all up, right? So overnight, price just drifted higher, forming higher lows, higher lows, higher lows. Then price stalled. Where? So this level here, 71.45 to 71.50 was Friday's value area low. And I find that interesting because Friday's value area low was 71.50. Monday's value area high is 71.49. So that's going to be the first level we need to be on alert for going into the open. Okay. So yesterday, what did we see? We saw price open. Obviously, we gapped down Sunday night. Off the open, price rallied and then tested value area low. It could not gain any traction inside of value, could not find any acceptance, and bears were there. And I'll give the bears some credit, right? They've been getting run over every day. But yesterday was the first time that we saw a rejection from a level that made sense. So value area low. We were unable to break into Friday's value like we did last Monday and continue a resumption of the trend. Instead, we saw a deeper retracement of the overnight move, which fell short and stopped right at the overnight volume point of control, or the price that was most traded in the overnight session.
Right here.
All right, so I hope that makes sense. Right. However, adding to that was that the bears, while they were able to sell the high here and get lower prices, right? What do we see? We saw there's a lack of sellers in this market, right? Because so what would have made sense is we pulled back, right? And then price kind of tested that overnight high volume node, high volume area, and we retraced, and then we saw a resumption down to the overnight low.
Yes,
right. That would have signified to us that, hey, sellers are active, they're dominant, they're trying to push prices lower, and on top of that, they're gaining a following. People are saying, hey, yeah, I'm going to take profit, and I'm also, hey, I'm going to try lay out some shorts.
74% that the
That's not what happened. Price came back, pulled back to the highest traded price from the overnight session, and then immediately retraced and drifted back higher and really closed just off the highs.
Okay. Yeah,
after the Globex open, there was some positive news, and it was game on to the upside.
Although
all right, so going into today, what do we have?
Right away and
running short on time here, and I don't want to bore you to death. But that higher time frame stuff has to be covered. I think it's important.
We have to see how it opens, and if it opens,
coming into today,
higher right away above that overnight level.
Let's make sure we have Friday in here.
Probably not going to fill.
So the first zone we need to
that's the NASDAQ.
Pay attention to again is that value area high low. But let's cover the bullish argument first.
71.
So do we get? Hang on, let me get my marker here.
75. Probably not going to fill. If it goes,
the question we always ask ourselves at this point is, what is the condition of the overnight inventory? So the overnight, with our settlement being at 71.48 and 90% of the volume or 95% of the volume having been above that price, it is safe to say that overnight inventory is net long. However, in the last hour or so, or even more, we've seen more than half of that overnight move retrace. So I would go in and say that the overnight inventory is long, but there's not enough there for an edge, right? It's already paired off quite a bit, and now price is testing yesterday's high. Yesterday's RTH high comes in at 71.59, and that's where we are now.
So I'm going to run those last 5 days of the month today.
The bullish argument is that we open here at 71.61, we get an open drive higher. Let me just clear out that old marker. All right, so we open here 71.62. Price rallies, we get an opening drive. We pull back, we breach the overnight high. We start looking for pullback to hold into the overnight high, and we want to see a break here of Friday's high.
See what else they have here. So
we look for pullbacks to the overnight high, a resumption of the trend, bulls on, Artemis move to the moon continues. That's the most bullish argument. But we already see that here on that Friday's high.
The NAS
this probably will not be a thrusty move right through it. I think that we have to be on alert for some choppy two-way trade. And if we start going sideways here, where price pulls back, but just can't gain any traction down or can't gain any following higher, we have to interpret that as being bullish, right? And then we look for entries later in that balance area, long entries to take us to
probably will
to blue sky, to new highs.
But the NASDAQ has much higher probability.
So that's the most bullish argument. Say we open now, we open right here, just above yesterday's high.
See,
the overnight inventory continues to get liquidated. We get a move down lower to value area high and the settlement.
I mean, trading above this.
So is it a scenario where we pull back to the overnight low or to value area high and the settlement
27,587? So that's like what is that?
Bulls are waiting for that pullback, and we kind of say we reached the overnight low, which is at 71.45.
That's what I'm looking for.
It reclaims the overnight low, and on the reclaim, we look for low. We can start looking for longs off of a higher low. Okay,
we're above this.
Do we open
here and
trade inside Monday's range? Test the overnight low.
Actually, there's
settlement value area high,
real quick,
and trap some bears below the overnight low, and maybe we do an inverted. I don't know. Maybe we go like this. We go down. We test yesterday's volume point of control, reclaim the overnight high, and then we continue higher, something like that.
Yeah.
All right. So let's be on alert for. I find it hard to believe that we're going to be able to cut through the Globex Open, value area high, and settlement, all that line up between 71.48 and 71.51, which makes things really easy for us. It's a small, tight band,
220,
and it gives us a good idea for a go or no go level. But we have to interpret that as that's going to be a support area. I don't see price cutting through that area and slicing right through it, unless we're really bearish, unless there's some news event, then that can easily be the case. But we have to start looking for pullbacks. We have to start looking for higher lows to form and to take long trades in continuation of the trend. All right, so if we open, we trade lower, value area high, settlement, and volume point of control, all of those fail to hold. Well, then that's easy, right? Well, then that becomes really easy because we get to move lower, and then at that point, we can start looking for pullbacks that hold into this band area, and we can start looking for short trade ideas to take us to yesterday's low. So if we breach the overnight low, reclaim it, and are unable to get back above value area high 71.50, right, where price stutters and peters out, and then we come back and keep knocking on the lows, then we can probably sell a break of the overnight low and sell it as a breakdown short and look for a target of value area low at 71.33. Yeah, I think that makes sense. All right, so we get an open. The 71.45 to 71.50 band fails to hold. We pull back up to it, but we can't gain any acceptance above it, and we start knocking on the lows. We can sell a break or wait for price to break and sell a pullback with a tight stop, knowing that we're counter trending, and maybe look for a low, a move down to value area low. That entry would probably be 71.45. And value area lows at 71.33. So there is some meat on those bones.
228.
All right, so I think that covers the bearish argument. Also, you know, remember when ESLs, we're gonna cut through all levels. So if we open and we slice right through 71.45 to 71.50 and 71.30 to 71.35, and there's no one home.
23,189.
That's going to be evident really quickly. So then at that point, any pullback that we see, we can enter it or maybe even sell a break. Sell a break below value area low, 71.33, 71.35. All right. So I think that covers the bearish argument, the bearish intraday trade. Now let's cover the dreaded sideways move, right? So price comes down. We test this 71.45 to 71.50 band. We already know what it is, right? Price dips below, can't get any can't gain any traction, comes back above, can't gain a following, and we start going sideways. I think at that point we start looking for
this is going
alongside
29
against the overnight low and that value area
I think it's
low.
going up here.
All right.
Here, this is a really good measure.
All right, so here we are. We have the open. Let's make sure we jot down our opening print. And let me make sure that I have mine.
I'll measure the ES.
All right, so we've opened at 71.62 half. Let's make note of that.
Here.
Take note of that. Okay.
Here.
71.60.
So we are going substantially higher.
All right, so immediately off the open here, we see we're getting a bit of a thrusty move lower. All right, I'm going to close this down. Remember, we're looking for test into that area. Let's see what happens when we get to value area high and settlement.
1807. Let's see this.
All right, looks like I'm having a bit of an issue here.
LGP.
Hang tight.
Here, 81.
For some reason, oh, Wow, the thirsty
First thing,
move here,
yeah.
guys. But my
Oh no, almost.
my screen is frozen here, so hang tight.
That's right there.
Shit,
It's
always something, right?
This is this.
Okay. All right, looks like I'm back in. I'm back in business here. Okay, I'm just flipping the algorithms on, making sure that I give some time here for the open to settle down. Quick programming note: today we're going to be joined by the one, the only Danny Riley. MrTopStep himself is going to be stopping into the show around 10:15 to give us his thoughts on the bigger picture, kind of give us his idea on his opinion on this rally, where this might be all going, and how the broader context kind of fits in to what we're seeing.
$78.01. I'm trying to see 81, 2.3.
Hang on. Shit. All right. I think thanks, guys. Sorry, I missed that. I think I have him muted now. Hey guys, guys in the pit chat, let me know if you're still here. Handle my fault. I don't know how he bleeds through, but not really what we want to hear in the morning. Hey, so look, I mean, we opened at 71.62.50, and price only managed to go up to trade 1 point higher before we came into this big pullback. NASDAQ is selling pretty hard here, so heads up. Heads up. NASDAQ is selling pretty hard. Let me make sure that I have these alerts set. Let me know if handle's still bleeding through, guys. Sorry about that. Oh shit! Sorry. Hey, people watching on YouTube, sorry about that. All right. So these are my pre-planned levels that I'm placing alerts on. And it makes things a little bit easier for me. In case I don't have this chart up. All right. Let's go look back at the ATAs and see what they're doing. All right. Thank you. Yep. All right. So here we go. An opening drive lower. Now we're testing into that band, right? We're testing into that the ID band of value area high 71.45 to 71.50. Let's be on alert for there's some support at 71.45 to 71.40. All right. So be on alert for that. That's also lines up pretty well with the overnight low. Quick read on the internals, 1-to-1 positive on the NYSE, 1-to-1 positive on the NASDAQ. NASDAQ is off its lows. And here's another heads up, guys. The Russell is still pretty strong, relatively speaking. So I know this looks like a pretty strong move down, and it is. Straight down for 10 points. Well, we know where to pay attention. All right, we just came down and tested that band. We made a low at 71.46.50, and now price is kind of stalling out. Let's see what happens here. Overnight low came in at 71.45, actually. So no, it hasn't been breached. Do I have that right? No, I don't. 71.50 is the overnight low. My bad. I thought it was 71.45. All right. All right. So yeah, so we breached the overnight low, and now price is kind of stalling out. We know why. All right. So let's just pay attention here. Oh man, I don't have a hat on. How am I supposed to make any money without a hat? Hat goes on. I mean business. All right, let's go. What do we get? Let's just check out that low and see what kind of let's take a look at the order flow. Pull this down. Great tool for monitoring your order flow is Delta Trader. You guys should check that out. I love Delta Trader for monitoring, uh, order flow, footprint charts, stuff like that. Super cool. Check it out. Very good tool for order flow traders. So we just won. So we just took that early low, and price bounced about 3 points. So we can see how it's already starting, right? It's already price is already starting to kind of peter out on the short side. So remember again, so we have a ton of areas here that can act as support. So the one thing I want to do here is I don't want to rush into anything because there can be a lot of noise in this area. That's yesterday's settlement at 71.48, value area high at 71.49, and the overnight low at 71.50. All right. Okay, here we go. Let me just see here. Dang it, I can't. I'm having a hard time checking the order flow here. So let's just see. Let's see. Okay. For some reason, my mouse is pretty latent here. It's not a good sign. All right. Price bounced off. Now we're starting to form a little bit of a balance down here. See what happens with the short trade idea. Again, that's an algo executed trade, so I'm not really getting in the way of it. But if it does get back above that pivot, I think it's a dead idea. Yep, right back above. First, okay. Cool, 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 cool. Yep, getting that move higher here. Looks like price is trying to reclaim that overnight low here at 71.50. But we know this is going to be a chop zone, right? We know we can expect some choppiness into this area. All right. Pretty narrow miss on that stop there. Let's take a look around the horn, see what's going on here. Hey, is this? I mean, the Russell is pretty strong, dude. This is pretty wild to see the Russell that the clear bifurcation here, right? Clear. I mean, am I reading this? Yeah, Russell's pretty strong off the open. I mean, it looks like it's moving opposite to ES and NQ, which is wild. All right. Yeah, so I'm not sure that I want to be in that short trade with Russell rallying that much. Yep. So we'll just close that out. All right. Looks like we got to stop on that one. Let's reset. Give it another go. 1.5 to 1 positive. Wow. So the Russell is above its early high pivot, man. That's wild to see. The Russell is really bid here. So just stay on alert here for that. Man, my mouse is really late in here. It's really laggy. All right, so we're getting that bullish, the bullish outcome, right? Where price went back down, tested that value area high zone, and bounced. So that's the most bullish outcome. I think that it's safe to say that it was the first test was rejected, right? So right here, this is what we discussed. Come down value area high settlement, and then look for that to hold the support. Now we're back up to testing the open. So back through the open, it's game on to the upside. Pretty strong dusty move here. Not the way you want to start the day, though. You want to start. All right, we're coming back in. We're testing volume. We're testing VWAP at 7161.50. Here we go. And there's multiple ways we can trade it. Let's just see what happens. Gain some acceptance here, then we start looking for pullbacks. I think pullbacks to the 71, 55, 56 area might be safe. Let's see. I mean, there's nothing safe in here, right? There's just risk and not risk. It's not like we're walking on a tightrope. It's literally ones and zeros on the screen. Nothing in here can kill us or can really hurt us, depending on your perspective. All right, let's take a look. 1.5, dude. Russell is skyrocketing right now. I think that's a big tell here. You know, that's what really had. I should have cut that short a little bit earlier. Once I saw that, I kind of stuttered and let it work. I try not to get in the way of the algorithms. I try to let them operate autonomously. I think that's the whole point of them. If you start getting too fiddly with them, you can, you will alter you'll change the performance of them if you fiddle with them too much. All right. So now what am I looking for? I'm looking for a pullback. I just got a question. What am I looking for? So on the A4, I'm looking for a pullback. I'd be getting long at 71.58. Okay. On the CCI, we're going to have to let that develop a little bit more. But just a heads up, we're back above yesterday's high. We're back above yesterday's RTH high, right? So let's just Yep, look at that. Cleared cleared 7160 area. So now, hey, pullbacks I think are what we need to start looking for. One other thing to mention is that today's an S3 day, and you guys will start to hear me talk about this a lot. I mentioned it the last time. On S3 days, they tend to be the most choppy days. You get a lot of two-way price action, a lot of doji type days. Nothing really happening here for me. I've got to wait for a pullback. So I didn't quite get my support area down at 71. Let's see, where was that area? I know it was at the top of that zone. So for a pre-planned setup, I needed 71.43 to trade. I didn't get it. We traded settlement and skyrocketed. So yeah. The further this thing goes, the harder it's gonna, the longer I'm gonna have to wait. Yeah. So Jeff Z asks, where do we find out what S3 days are? Right here, Jeff. It's a time based. So what is an S3 day? S3 day is a particular day type that we see in the market, and the market has a tendency to follow, so we all know that there are a lot of algorithmic trading. There's a lot of program trading going on in the market, right? Day in and day out. We know that because we have Spygate, our institutional activity tracker. Those programs tend to follow a certain cadence throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month. Our time-based study is a probability that gives us a probability or an idea when we would see a low pivot based on time. Doesn't have anything to do with price, just based on time. So there are certain windows. For instance, today we're looking for a low pivot between 10:15 and 10:45. And that's what I'm waiting for on this ramp up here to get long. So S3 days have it's a 5 time based. So there are 5 time based pivots, and I'll post I think I posted the visual in the chat. Did I? Yep. So if you scroll up, Jeff Z, there's a visual that I posted at 8:59. You can check that out. That'll give you the rest of the day and how it should unfold. Again, it's time. So, if you're new to it, what I suggest you do is trade later in the window, not earlier. And, price is everything, right? Price is dominant. So, it's when you marry the technicals with the time that the magic happens. Yep. So I'm looking for pullbacks into that, 10:30, 10:15, 10:45. So obviously we got thrusty move here off the lows. So I'm just going to give this some time to settle out. Started off with an early shiner. I took that first stop on the algo trade, and all these trades that I'm trading in front of you are, real live money, real accounts. So I have to be mindful of money management. I want to try to be mindful and be cautious here, especially when you start the day with a stop, right? That sucks. Who the hell likes that? And so the tendency, right, years, back when I was a rookie, it was like, all right, the market would open and I wouldn't take a point and click trade off the open myself. I typically wait for the half hour, but I'll let the algorithms trade for me during that time. If they see something, if it sets up and it meets the criteria, take the trade. But circling back to what I said earlier, when I was a rookie, I'd start off and, in the first 5-10 minutes, I'll have a stop. And, it was never going to be a good day after that because I'd unravel, right? I'd start, chasing, and all of a sudden it's like 11 o'clock and I have, 25 trades. Now, what I do is, if I start off with an early shiner like that, which is, it happens. I wouldn't say it's common, but maybe it's more common than I like to admit. I just like to chill out after that and just kind of take a breather. Also, let my head settle in and make sure I have a good read on price. And so in terms of FOMO, right? FOMO is probably a big one that we all deal with. There's what is price going to do every day? There's one thing that price does every day. See if you guys can guess it. What is the one thing that price does every single day? Move. Exactly. Good job, Magister. It's going to move, right? We know price is going to move. It is not going to stay at 71.6650 for the rest of the day. All right. So with that understanding, you could kick FOMO right out of the window. It's obviously it's not that easy, but after you get an unexpected outcome from a trade, I like to chill out, reset, make sure I get the read right. I also don't want to blow my wad before, I also don't want to have 3 or 4 stop outs by, 12 by noon. That's not good. How's that day end? Yeah, for sure. It's part of the game. All right, so waiting for some pullbacks here. We got this pretty big extension move higher. Really not much to see. I think the big tell there was the Russell, right? Russell was, it didn't even get close to its overnight low, and the Nasdaq was selling pretty hard. And that's been common, over the last 3 to 4 months, right? Small caps have been leading. And I was, on a previous stream, I was, we were discussing, it's like, on bullish days, do you take the strongest index and kind of and look for the strongest index as a indicator for bullish moves. So case in point, today a great example, right? So we saw ES and Q selling hard, selling lower, and the Russell wasn't even close. That's a divergence, right? The Russell has been leading everything. Russell has been leading the 3 majors, and it was not selling as hard as NASDAQ or the ES. Conversely, add to that the caveat that the NQ apart from yesterday has been kind of weak, right? So yeah, let's use that. All right, so it looks like we have another one triggered here. Let's see what happens there. Let me make sure that I have the right account here. Yep. Okay. Chart trader. Hidden. Chart trader. Yep. Okay. That's right. Fumbling through accounts, but all right. So the 810 has got me short 71.69. Again, that's an algorithm trade. It's executed on its own, and let that play out. Parents are still. I'm in one of the group chats that I'm in for my team. These parents are just going wild. We had a big tournament win this weekend, guys. We won the Under Armour USSSA. I forgot what they named it, but every time you win, you get one of these neat little rings. So yeah, it's pretty cool. We won first place in the gold bracket. All right. So we're looking for the first target on the 810 down at 71.64 quarter. Again, just trying to let that run autonomously. I would not, be taking a short trade here. That just not a point and click short trade. But that's something I can recommend to everyone out there. Have different systems that you run, right? Different, just like you have different setups. It's good to have different setup types, right? Or different ways you execute. Like, so I know a lot of traders have, an opening range type of trade that they execute. And that could be your standard cookie cutter, price breaks over the first, 5-minute, 10-minute range. You're getting long, you're pricing your stop on the opposite side of that range, right? That's just the standard basic old school opening range trade. But I mean, you can have different types of, you can have MACD setups, you can have stochastic setups, you can have oscillator setups, you can have support and resistance setups. It's always good to have a mixed bag or multiple clubs, I should say, in your golf bag. You don't go play golf with only your driver and your wood, right? Correct. So Bruce F says, and it's a good idea to understand how different trade systems work in various market conditions. Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. There's not a one size fits all in any of this. We all know that trading is anything but linear, right? It's anything but there are no absolutes in trading. That nothing happens 100% of the time. It's very, very, very nuanced. So it's good to have different types of approaches. Reversal at the bottom, man. They just got me snatched. They just snatched me down there. Typically, I like to be the one that's doing the trapping, but I'm the one that got trapped this morning. I kind of sensed it too as soon as we saw the rally, but I think at that point, the best to do was to just click close if you're overthinking it. or stand out of the way. If I'd have been in a point and click trade, I'd have just clicked close. But let's not overthink one trade. All right. So it looks like I got taken out right there, break even. Or for, yep, just break even. No harm, no foul. Let's go back here. This thing is just going to pull away. It's just it's just telling you, you know what, Manny, you're slow AF, and you missed the pullback that you alerted everyone to. So, yeah, I'll get him next time. Watch. I get super competitive with trading, right? I'm not sure if that happens to you guys, but you know, I get super competitive. Like I just it's not a need to want to be right or whatever. I just, you know, I just like the way it feels. Like I like the way it feels, you know, to be right and win, whatever. But I just hate to be like, I hate to not have, I don't care about being wrong, right? That's going to happen 10 times a day. But what really really grinds my gears is not executing right. That's the one. Right? It's like baseball, right? You could be a beast in the cage, in the batting cages. You could be I see it all the time. You're a beast in the cage, but when then in the game, you know, you freeze up and you can't hit a lick. I mean, I don't know. Here, guys, it went. So Magister just points out went long ES 7170 75. Yeah. So what's the trade here, guys? What am I missing? Help me out here. That is one long ass buying tail. Check this out. So right here. It's a pretty big buying tail. Right. Right here. Look at this. Lockout rally continues. Nary a pullback. I don't know. So if I didn't have you, thanks for keeping me company, by the way, because this is boring AF. There's just, I mean, I you know, I don't have a trade here. Narrow miss on that A4. I wonder if I should have went zone front on that. Let me just change the settings here. Turn that back on. Okay. So like we said in the open, let's focus on strong mindset, disciplined execution. And this is where it gets testy, right? This is where you kind of you decide who you're going to be as a trader, right? So, right, let's just walk through this, right? Let's talk about a little bit about mindset. You come in off the open, you see a thrusty move lower, you get you short a pullback. Unbeknownst to yourself, that shorting that pullback was the trap. All right, so fine, you took a shiner. It's going to happen. Then the market rallies counter trend to your move and just completely locks you out of it. that's where the mental breakdowns start to happen, right? You start to see the market move. It's moving fast. You're like, shit, I'm down. I'm down a grand, or I'm down. Whatever the case might be. How am I going to get this back? And you see the market start moving, and it's moving, and it's moving, and it just doesn't stop. And each point higher, you're like, I should have bought it a point ago. What's the reaction there, guys? What's the right move? What's the typical move? How do we get better at it? Let me know. Let me know how you guys handle it. So Jeff Z says, realize you are in FOMO and step back. Right, because we know there's going to be movement all day. So all right. So is it of course. So let's just zoom out a little bit here, right? Let me just blow this out. Right. So okay, can price go straight up to new all-time highs, blue sky territory, just straight up from here? Of course it can. But is that well, watch it do it today. Just because I'm talking about it. But is that what typically happens? Or am I gonna go buy this up here and then it's going to immediately pull back on me? I don't know. I'm not trying to talk anybody out of their trade. I just know how I'm gonna, I can just talk to how I'm managing it. These are the times that test me. And at the end of the day, whether I end up green or red, the real battle is the battle in my mind, and that's the one I want to win. I want to make sure that I walk away thinking like, hey, you know what? At least I didn't turn into warm butter and just like soft serve ice cream and melt all over the place and just start clicking and click, and end up clicking myself broke. Of course, this thing's just gonna zoom right higher now, just because I said that. So yep, there we go. Oh yeah, baba. Good job on you guys, on you all that are long. I mean, this looks like very grindy higher. All right, let's see what happens now. 10:15 mark. We're now in our window. Half an hour. Oh, you know what? Let me look at something here. So where is the long trade? All right. This is the trade I want right here. Okay. We just got a croak there, so let's just check out Spygate, see what that's about. Not a lot of action. One sell program is not going to move the needle. Just a heads up on the nuance there. One sell program is not going to do shit. Yep. Skyrocket. Not much going on. We're just chopping around at the highs, guys. Not much to see yet. Hopefully something materializes here in this window. Just got to get through some of these emails. Hang tight. There's nothing really going on here. Oh, hey, heads up. I want to show you guys something here. Let's see. Hey, who remembers this guy? Look at the old S&P pits back there. Look at that board, huh? This is the guy who's going to be joining us today. Super smart, knowledgeable, old school floor trader. Hang tight. MrTopStep himself, the originator. All right, we're getting a pullback here, so let me stay alert so I'm not bitching and moaning about missing another trade. Probably miss more trades than I take. Let me just get this right. Okay. Publish that. Okay. All right. What do we got? Pulling back to that 7163 VWAP and a little bit of a bounce there. So what we want to see here is that, you know, any pullback, I think we want to stay above 70-60, right? I mean, that's where I would want to see it. I don't think. Let me just zoom this out a little bit. Again, today's an S3 day, so this can get choppy fuck here. All right. So look, on the 15-minute, we just closed that fair value gap at 71.64, and immediately price had a somewhat of a reaction, right? All right. So now let's be mindful of back through the open, right? Back through 71.6250, and we get back below yesterday's high, 71.60. We have to start thinking, okay, chop shop, right? We're going into the chop shop. This is going to be a two-way sided trade, and then we can, and that's great, right? Because then we can switch our approach to then looking to fade the edges,
I
right?
mean, the light's on the camera, but I'm not showing.
Let me check.
Hey, Danny, your mic is on. You're live. All right, I don't think he hears us. Anyhow, so then if we have that, then we know we can start looking to fade the edges. All right.
It's not loading for me.
Okay.
That's the idea there.
Huh. We got to refresh it or something?
No, you're online now. You're online.
Oh, I don't see myself though.
No, it's weird. I don't know why, but you're online.
Okay.
You're live now.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, Danny, heads up.
Okay, everybody. Manny wanted me to come in. I'm more than happy to come in. And let's see what we got here.
All right, so we just came down. We just tested 71.61. So look out here, guys. This is the area where we want to see that hold. We kind of have that low volume notch down there at 71.59. We have another one, 71.58.
Can you guys see me? Okay, there we are. Hey, Manny.
Hey, Danny, how are you? You were live. You've been live for like, yes.
Oh, jeez. What's going on here? Hey, Manny, I can't hear you. I don't know why. Let's see. Audio. Let's see.
Just give Danny a moment here to.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Oh, we've been listening to you for a while now.
Okay, all right. Well, you know me. I'm a cluster buster. Anyways, I've been kind of repeatedly talking about this kind of back and forth thing between the Trump administration, right, Manny? We see it every day. And I really believe that Trump not only wants to get a deal, he needs to get a deal. But he keeps sending these mixed messages, right? And now the deal's back on, right? Aren't they supposed to meet now, Manny?
I'm not sure. I was hoping you can fill me in.
Well, I think the news is this morning that Iran has agreed to meet in Islamabad. And,
okay.
Yeah, but that's subject to change. I mean, I think Trump was saying last night that he was going to still do the blockade and blah blah blah. So it's very fluid. I mean, and I don't think that's going to change. But the chart that I put up, and I asked Handelstats this the other night when he called me on one of our lengthy phone calls. It was supposed to be 5 minutes. What he thought where the S&P could go to, like the highest it could go. And I've written several times. I've written in the opening print about where the banks think that the S&P could go. But first, I want to talk about UNH. It's up, it's up $30. And that's why the Dow is so strong this morning. I don't have a UNH chart, but everybody knows what's going on there. But let me go over some of the estimates some of these banks are talking about. And like I said, I've written about it several times in the opening print. Bank of America's got 7,100. JP Morgan's got 7,200. Goldman's talking 7,600. Citigroup 7,700, Morgan Stanley 7,800. I remember Deutsche Bank has always been the big one that stuck out. They're talking 8,100. Oppenheimer 8,100. RBC 7,750. I think Wells Fargo is it's 7,800. And that comes in around 7,500, 7,600. And when I was talking to Handle Stats, he asked me where I thought it could go. And my first thing out of my mouth was, I think if they really can get a deal and they can keep this together, and I guess there's a little bit of a question mark if they do get a deal with the market up so much. And I heard you talking about this morning about how high the market is, and we could get a pullback, and we did. But I said 7,250, and then I started looking at it, and I drew this line, and basically it goes right to the average, like 7,600. Now I don't know. Does that happen like today, tomorrow? I don't think so. But at the end of the day, I do think that one of the things that Handle Stats did say, and I think we will, is if April closes higher, we can. It'll be a bullish signal. I think we can go higher. Let me see where we're at on that right now.
Okay, that's if April closes higher.
Yeah. Let me
Yeah.
look. I always go back to my trusty bar charts. Let's see.
First pullback, take trade.
And right now, well, I mean, I guess there's a little bit of a question mark, but not much of a question mark. The S&P year to date is only down 0.31%. In the last month, that's the same. So all we got to do is have a 3.1% to get the Handle Stats up on the month of April. And we have, let me look. Sorry, I'm not as prepared. I've been doing a lot of work over at those other houses trying to get them done. But we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 trading days left in April. So provided that you get a deal out of, Trump can. I think he really did. I mean, don't you think he wants to get a deal, Manny? I mean, the way
for sure. So yeah. So like I didn't know what went on the last like 24 hours, 48 hours. But if you ask me, I think that I think he's looking for a deal. I think he thought he was going to be like Venezuela, to be honest with you, right? I think he thought he was going to go in, he was going to be out by now, and everything was going to be merry with the world. It's not, and I think I think you're right in that. This is way longer. I think he also realizes. We all know how he is, right?
Yeah.
I think that he realizes that he's not going to have a hero moment. One guy that said there was one guy. Well, I forgot who it was, but he said that like he's so insulated in this bubble that he actually thinks that there's broad range support for the war. And I was like, wow, how could he think that? Like public support?
No.
I don't know.
No.
What do you think?
It's I've learned really, and I've been talking about this even before the war, that the news, it just gets everybody, it slants everything. It's always got some kind of bias that's not real. The public gets sold the bill of goods, and then the markets go the other way. And I'm not just talking about the most recent sell-off and rally. And I have to admit that I am fairly taken back by how much the markets have gone up. But one of the things that I was talking about yesterday, and I've been talking about the last couple of days, I mean, it looks like the S&P is back in filling now in a bigger back and fill pattern.
Yep. So that also lines up really well with what I'm seeing in the book, right? So when I'm analyzing the book every day, I'm starting to see that there seems to be more. I think we're going to go into a distribution mode. Like if the book is still bullish, right? The still calls are still dominant, right? They're still being dominant. However, I see that there's and volatility isn't bid yet, but you're starting to see that those layering in of puts, and it kind of has that look, the same look that we had back in February and March. And I could be off and I could be early. Again, this is not a top call, but 2 weeks ago it didn't look like that.
Yeah, no, it didn't. And the other thing, I mean, I don't know. Stu, to answer your question, those are bank end of the year. Those are bank estimates for where they think that the S&P can go to this year. Now I think there was one. J.P. Morgan went down to 7,200 from 7,500. There was one revision when I looked, but I think that what astonishes me, and look, I think though that things are out of whack, right? I mean, you've got, and you obviously you have kids and you drive your car. You've got, you see this stuff at the pump. I mean, I think they said the gas in Florida got under $4 yesterday, or something like that. Did you see that?
Yeah, no. So I have an electric. I have a Tesla, so I don't really know what's going on.
That's great.
Yeah, I don't. Really know
I mean, these are the times when you look back and if you ever doubted having an electric car, you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
And I went and had lunch with Jeff Hirsch from the Stock Traders Almanac, and Marlon's actually been talking to him about opening up a room for doing the commodities.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And the commodities are going to be very big. I mean, they just are. They've been underpriced. At least I think they have for a long time, especially the grains. I don't know if Bill agrees with that or Jason Carter agrees, but $1.50 corn, and not that it's there now, but to me, there's always this cycle that we've seen, and gold's a perfect example. Silver. Everybody shorted silver for years, and I think that there's always been a tendency to sell the grains because they just don't go up that much. But again, I think that there's probably a cycle out there where and if we got a really hot summer, which you already know we've got a hot summer going down here. I mean, I think we had the warmest March ever in Florida. Did you hear that?
Yeah, you're right. Yep, it was really that was last summer. It was blazing saddles down here.
Yeah, but one of the things that kind of astonishes me is the number of times that Trump has tweeted, and I don't know if you saw the video I did yesterday on Twitter, but I think since February 6th, he's done an average of like 15 to 30 True Social posts a day. And the number, I mean, I was keeping track of it through the Wall Street Journal back about a month ago. And it was like in the first 3 weeks of the war, he had gone on True Social like 150 times.
Okay.
And now
he's been. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, go ahead.
No, sorry. So what has it been lately?
Oh, it's been high. I mean,
okay.
And again, you never know with AI what's really the truth. But Grok said something. I asked, well, how many times has he gone on since the beginning of February 6th or February 9th? And it said basically, and again, I don't know if Marty always tells me you can't trust all this stuff or whatever. And well, maybe Marlon said that he's done like 800 posts.
Oh, really?
I mean, he's, I don't know.
Is he becoming unhinged?
I think so. I mean, I think the public.
I mean, think about it, right, Danny? That wouldn't be far fetched, right? Like, think about how much pressure that guy's under. Like, hate, look, hate him or like him, whatever your pleasure. I think that Trump is that kind of person, right? You either hate him or love him.
Yeah.
And but setting that aside for a moment, think about how much pressure that guy's under. I mean, he's got nonstop people in his ear. He's got all these bigger issues to kind of hash out and very complex problems. It's not a job I'd want.
No, no. And I really believe that he put himself in this situation. And he doesn't. I don't think he listens to a lot of his own advisors.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't go his way, he's pounding on the desk. There was I can't remember who it was. It was a T-Bond yesterday that put up a post in the room. I don't know if you saw that about him wanting the nuclear codes. Did you see
No
any
way.
of that?
No, I didn't see
Yeah,
that.
but it was all denied on. It was all denied on. It was all denied, and
Okay.
yeah. I mean, that's the last thing we need.
Yeah, right.
But as I've said many times, and I don't know a lot of people that said this. When he took office, right away, I wrote in the opening print that we would see constant volatility while he's in office.
Yeah,
he's delivered quite a bit of that so far this year.
Yeah,
And I think that there's a thing that he loves to save the market. He wants the markets to go up. And when they go down, he beats the drum to get them going higher. So
Yep. Money's top of his mind, right? And I think that we all know that the Fed comes out like on FOMC day, right? We all know that the Fed is literally trading ES minis and Q minis, right? I mean, do you think that they're not, shoring up crude in some way if they could? Crude should be a lot higher, I think, and I don't know. I just scratch my head at that. I'm going to take my tinfoil hat off, but I think that I think the Fed, I think crude should be a lot higher, and there's probably something else at work there.
Yeah, I agree. In the long run, we all know that he's got a lot of guys that work in the administration. The guy that ran Cantor Fitzgerald and his kids are bad. This is another thing I wrote about is all the front running. I did that, I think, on Monday. The front running is it's every day. I mean, whether it's in the predictive markets, in the futures markets, whether it's in options, it's just nonstop. And they're huge winning bets. You would think somewhere in here, I think before the last announcement, what they got short like $700 million worth of crude futures.
Really?
Yeah. And WTI and the markets just go ballistic, and then they open down 9%. So I don't know, they talk about Nancy Pelosi, but they're not talking about this very much,
and Danny, for the folks watching on YouTube, maybe you can give them a little. Can you tell them what back and filling means? I just got a question about it.
Like if you pull out maybe the last 2 weeks of your chart, it's really a price action where the markets come down to a level and they basically trade, in a very narrow range. It's a holding pattern. And, we've seen a lot of back and fill, I would say, recently between 71.20 and 71.50, 71.60 in a wider picture. Now, does that mean that the markets are signaling that they're just going to go straight up from there? Not necessarily, but on a wider chart, it's a narrowing of the ranges. And I love looking at that. I think that's a good indicator, especially on a longer term basis for figuring out if, and I wish I don't have I mean, I could pull up a chart, but I have to dick around and I'm not real good at that. But, it's just where you see the range start to, when the range is established, and then it just basically trades in a, 5-10 point range for hours at a time,
Okay, yeah, so kind of like a pullback instead of it being a full blown pullback, like more like a pullback in time, right? Where it's just going sideways and kind of moving its way down.
Yeah. And there was before, right after the S&P, went down to 6350 and it went up, I was writing in the opening print, and I got to admit, I wasn't catching on about it, that we had several days of back and filling. And then obviously we get this big push up to the highs, I think it's somewhat of a indicator for knowing when like selling is letting up. Now today, I mean, on today's chart, I don't know. I got to look at it. We haven't had a lot of back and fill today, but yesterday we had a lot, like late in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Like, and I was pointing it out. I was trying to be long a couple of times and said, what the MIM came out 400 million to buy or something like that. And we pulled back a little bit, and they've got this thing now where, everybody cues in on the MIM and the 350 imbalance, right? And that can work great if the markets are down a little bit, or they're trending or whatever, and you get a big buy imbalance and you'll see a big pop in the S&P. But I think maybe there's too much emphasis on the 350 imbalance. Whereas the 4 o'clock cash close has now become, you see, you may not get that pop at 350 when the MIM comes out, or it may be 4 o'clock in the cash close. Then you start to see this buying show up. And that's what happened yesterday. And I don't know the exact times, but I think they popped up like 13 points after the 4 o'clock cash close. And then the news I guess there was news that came out that said, Iran was willing to negotiate. And, but then it was denied last night. So I don't know. But then overnight, the S&P trades up to, 7180.
Right.
So I think the closes do set up a lot of the price action for Globex.
Hang tight.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'll leave you guys with Danny. I have to go use the bathroom real quick.
Okay. But anyways, one of the things that I've always tried to maintain, and I don't always maintain, is that I think in these kind of markets that you got to be a little bit more cautious of how you're trading. And I kind of get in too much and get out. And this morning I love talking to handle stats and finding out his gap study and stuff. And we opened higher and then we go down, and we got down to those lows and under 7150, and they held. Now we're going back down. I mean, I don't know if this is news related. I mean, there's so much news that comes out now. It is really, really like, I don't know. I've never seen so much news. I mean, in all my time on the trading floor, even during like the credit crisis, there was a lot of headline news, but never like this before. Never. And, they've got all these bots, these algorithmic, news algos, and they really can, now that I think they control the tape. I'm just talking about like the news wires and the algorithms, the news algorithms, and they get it first. We get it second. Obviously we do get a bunch of the guys in here popping in news when it comes out, which is great. But, generally before we get it in here, it's on Twitter or it's somewhere else. And it becomes something that everybody tries to trade off of. But if you're coming late to the party, it's not specifically very good. Now, I don't know. Stu, is there any news items out there? I mean, anybody?
Check LS. Let's see what else is going on here. Live Squawk hasn't reported anything that that I can tell, but
Pakistani information minister states that Pakistan is consistently communicating with Iran. Pakistan information, I think they just reposted, working hard to persuade the leaders to join the second round of talks. Pakistan information minister says ceasefire ends at 4:50. Iran's decision to join talks before ceasefire is important. It doesn't sound to me, I mean, we just continue to get all this news out there that says that they're gonna come for the talks, you know. But Manny, my own opinion is I've traveled a lot in the Middle East, and not necessarily not in Iran. My one of the guys, my partner on the floor, his brother-in-law actually was Iranian and used to travel back and forth while we were going to Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and I mean I've been in Saudi Arabia. I've been in Oman. Always was the sentiment all that great for Americans? I mean, I was warned years and years ago not to go to specific areas, even in Dubai. But I
yeah,
just
so interestingly about that, like I like most recently I was in Prague, and they weren't very receptive to us. Like, there's a common thinking that you roll with a blue passport, you kind of get carte blanche in places, and that wasn't the case there. We weren't like adored.
no.
And we've traveled a lot, so we know how to travel. We're typically not the typical tourists you might see. So, but we picked up on that early. We went to kind of some shady areas too that we had to watch our back, but we had a ton of fun.
And then, I mean, obviously, I mean, and I talked to Reb about this on the phone last night. Canada is really not a hard country to get along with. I mean, that's what he said. I don't know all the ins and outs of that. And I told him, I was friends with Bob Probert, the well-known hockey player, and I had been in Windsor and been in Canada a lot. And I never, encountered any kind of negative Americanism there at all. Obviously, the administration has taken a harder line on. I don't know if I'm not even sure what all these lines are. That NATO doesn't pay enough. Canada's not, backing the U.S. They got all these tariffs, and I think it's just clouded our, it's clouded our friendships with a lot of these different countries, specifically NATO right now.
Yeah. So to your point, right? Like, so he went and kind of berated NATO and told them we don't need them. And look, if that's your argument, right, there's better ways to do it. But then now you need them to help you out in the straight, and they're not showing up, and you can't be surprised, right? I mean, it's like if you mistreated that girl, you can't expect to get a second date.
Yeah.
Right? So anyway, guys, coming into that final target here on the short, I didn't want to interrupt Danny, but the algo got me short. He at 71.59, 75, looking for 71.44, and then a point and click trade that got short at 71.64, looking for 71.39 on that, looking for a touch to the prior point of control. We do have support at 71.43. So look out. Sorry, Danny.
Yeah.
Back to Danny.
I'm not seeing let's see, ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran approaches its end. There are some issues on both sides. This is from Bloom. I don't know. I mean, to me, this is the same thing that we've been seeing every day, since they agreed to the ceasefire. And my own opinion is, I see Rev saying Canada loves Americans, but they're seriously confused by their administration. Yes, we are. But
well, the administration is not the people, right?
No.
So that's I have a friend overseas, and he tells me that that's good.
Well, you know, I don't think the way the world is working right now, uh, that it's a good idea not to have friends, and I don't think it's a good idea to push NATO into a corner where they want to open their own alliance and not include the United States. Um,
Right.
it doesn't make sense to me, but it's another kind of thing where I think Trump moves on something, then he takes it to an extreme, and then he just can't stop. Um, and again, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I mean, I always talk about this. I didn't vote for Biden, and I didn't vote for Trump. I had high hopes that the Trump administration um, would do some good things, and I think they have, especially on immigration. But they're also a big spend. There's a lot of spending going on. I mean, I think they say that the war in the Middle East is costing the United States between $2 and $3 billion a day. And there's an estimate out there that we've spent $1 trillion. I don't know that for a fact. Again, I think if you're going to pull out all this kind of information, you're more than likely not going to get the exact answers. But I think it's pretty close. I'm pretty sure that the $2 to $3 billion a day is probably in line with the cost of what the administration paying to have this war over there, and that may be a driving force to want to get it over with and conclude it. But I think the way this looks is that the more that Trump tries to get them to negotiate, but then threatens them at the same time, that leaves them open to come back and say, hey, the U.S. is asking for too much. We're not going to negotiate. And then you just end up in this quagmire that now is over 2 months. We're 2 months into this now, Manny.
Yeah. I think it's making everyone pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah, I get it. The S&P's rallied over 10% off its lows, but I still think that it's just not a very clear picture. It's not. And
Yeah, well, they also say markets climb a wall of worry, right? So
Yeah.
I don't think that there's ever been, war and conflict unfortunately is necessarily bearish. I think that the markets typically react on a news event, and then it gets back to doing whatever it was doing before that.
Yeah.
I think so. How they say about people that drink often and stuff. They say if a person alcohol brings out whoever the person really is, and I think that the market is much the same, right? So whatever it was doing prior to the news or war event, it's just going to continue to do that. Probably a little bit more thrusty, but once the news settles down, I think that it's pretty straightforward. Gets back to doing whatever it was doing.
Well, Magister is saying Rev is eternal optimist. I think at the end of the day, we all are optimists at heart. We all want to see something good happen. Can they get a deal? I don't know. I mean, if they've had the Strait of Hormuz closed for 2 months, who's to say it can't go on another month, another 2 months? I think at the end of the day, this is going to just hurt the consumers. It's if for me or you, I mean, and you've got you've got a Tesla, so you don't have that concern. But if you don't have a lot of money, and you've got to drive 100 miles to work every day, and you're only making $1,000 a week or whatever that number is, and it goes from $1.50 or $2 a gallon, which it has been around $2, $2.25, $2.50, and then it goes to $5 and premium gasoline. When I dropped off Jeff Hirsch to go back, to his hometown, I pulled in a gas station near Fort Lauderdale Airport, and it was $5.75.
Jeez.
That's premium though. But again, I think that the cost of this on the public is going to, not everybody can afford that.
You know that I read that in Australia, diesel, that's their primary form of vehicle gasoline, was up in some cases 100%. You
Yeah.
guys, heads up. So just a real quick updates, real quick, Danny. So the point and click trade is now up 25 points. You can see that one here. Just trailing it down, just letting it work. And then the algo triggered another trade short at 71.47. That one's got like 8.5 points in it. I'm looking for 71.35. I have the support areas in here. I'm just kind of letting this this next support is at 71.33. So obviously the 71.43 yielded nothing. I'm glad we're not buying it. Price is just moving way too quickly. We've had a complete pivot in the internals. But more importantly, guys, remember what we were talking about with the Russell, right? So the Russell was bid. And on this sell-off, the Russell is now leading lower. Right, so let's look for that. Let's look at that. Remember, we want to use that for lower. Let's watch how NASDAQ reacts here. But this looks like what we were talking about in the pre-market prep. Right, we were looking at we looked at. All right, so I got the 71.39 for 30 points on that one. That's excellent. Super happy about that. And now I'm coming into a 15-point target for the algo executed trade. But anyway, circling back real quick, guys, we pointed this out in the pre-market prep, right, on our 4-hour chart. We laid out the argument for why this was going to be a choppy area. Let's just review it quickly, right? So we had 63.60 low. We breached it by 7.6353, right? Then we had the impulsive move up, pulled back down to the low. We had a 50% retracement. We did 100% of that move. Price went sideways. Okay. So then we take that last pullback. We pull up to the rally high. We pull back to the side, to the low of the consolidation. And look, price did another 100% extension. So it kind of makes sense here that price kind of, moving sideways. And if not, we have wave symmetry, looking for a wave 4 low. We outlined the areas that we think that can reach. So it's just staying short here, staying focused. Hopefully you guys caught some of this. I did.
Funny thing that you should mention the Russell, because I do pay attention to the Russell quite often. And out of the last 14 trading days, it's been down 1 out of the last 14 and 1 unchanged. And currently, it's only down 0.13% on the year. And that has been the outperformer out of all these indices. I mean, I look at this every night. And in fact, I think I wrote it up wrong the other day that I believe that the Russell has outpaced the NASDAQ on this rally. And to tell you the truth, Manny, I think you mentioned something,
Got it.
we haven't seen anything like this in a long time. I can't remember. I mean, maybe during the credit crisis, after it made its low, you would see these big consecutive up days. But generally, when you get I would just say on a normal basis, and I don't know that there's any normal fits in this very well anymore. But if you had a 5-day rally in the S&P, you would say, well, the S&P doesn't go, up 5 days in a row without a down day, or 7, 8 days in a row, 9 days, 8, 9, 10 days in a row.
Yeah,
is like unheard of. But when you're looking at the NASDAQ, I mean, here, let me look at the NASDAQ real quick.
big self. Hey guys, so real quick while Danny's getting that chart ready, so got the 20-point target, that last one. So circling back. So on the early trade, I think I lost 5, like that, and then I made 10 on the first, or 5 on the first, 20 on the second. So it fit nicely green now and everything. Being patient paid off.
Good trades.
Thank you.
So the NASDAQ, out of the last 14 sessions, it's out of the last 14 sessions, not excluding today, it's been up 13 out of the 14 sessions and only one unchanged. Today we're down a little bit, but on the year, on the 5-day, and year to date, we're only down 0.30%. I mean, these are huge turnarounds. So, you know, any negative news will be reacted to pretty quickly. You know, and I keep searching. I don't know if X is the thing to look at. You know, but you know, I'm seeing the same stuff. You know, where we get the news that things are moving along fine, and then you get the other news coming out saying, oh, they're not agreeing. And so kind of an endless kind of thing here.
The endless back and forth, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and then let's see. Oh, this one. Strait of Hormuz traffic near halt amid blockade. I don't know. It doesn't look to me like they've got any kind of deal to meet. But again, I don't. You know, it's so fluid that this can change on it in a minute. You know, so
For sure.
I don't know. But I'm wondering if they do actually get a deal and the market does pop way up. Do we get a pullback after that? Do they sell the news? I mean, they're just going to continue to buy it up and like nonstop like they've been doing.
Yeah, I think so. In my opinion, I think that what we're going to see is I think we're going to see higher prices into you know, the typical time where we get a pullback, which is like, you know, August, September. I think that the pullback time was that 63.53 low. But we'll see. You know, been wrong before, going to be wrong again.
Reb's asking if the war is the market bottom, does peace mark a top? I mean, Reb, I've been thinking about this in my mind for quite a long time. I mean, at least the last week and a half, and I don't know that answer. But I will say one thing: that generally, when you get this many consecutive days up, it does lead to some kind of sell-off pullback. But again, it's all news related. Tom L.
Yeah, and so here's the thing. If you know, look, guys, I'm a technician, right? Like, you know, I study trends, I study chart patterns, and what I'm, you know, I have to go out on a limb here and say that, you know, after we complete this next, I think that the next rally high, like wherever it is, 76, 77, 10,000, I think the next down move is going to be serious. I think it's going to be, you know, it's not going to be a pullback. I think it's going to be a trend changer.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a trend changer from, you know, the marking, you know, from the low, the COVID low at 2174. I think we're going into something much more serious than we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years. If the chart patterns line up, right? I don't know about how the macro economic situation is going to fit into all of that, but if the chart pattern's telling me anything, it's telling me that the next pullback is not going to be a higher low.
Yeah.
It's going to be a
lower.
So
I think this 7120 level, this is what I put in the opening print today. You know, I think this is a big level right here. We've stopped a couple times down here. I don't know if it's going to hold today, but and you've got a lot of support all the way down to 70.85, 70.83. So my own guess, well, here we go. We're popping back up a little bit. But,
yep.
I wish I had. Well, yeah, I can't pull it over.
What is going on here?
What is that, Manny?
Hang on. No, I don't know. This thing just it just got stopped out of a short and then triggered a long. Let me just make sure I have this lined up. Algos run amok, guys. Algos are running amok.
Yes, they are.
Oh my God.
So Tom says even Avis car pulled back slightly today.
What the hell is going on here? Okay, set that up. Why the hell did that trigger? I probably have that account loaded in somewhere else and I don't know it. Some of the things that happened to me here is that, I try to keep my account numbers private, but if I have to switch the account numbers after I get a good trade, I tend to set that account aside and I get kind of confused with the account numbers, but um, that's neither here nor there.
Stu says he's short. I don't know, Stu. If this 7120 holds, I mean, we're in this big, like I said, it may not look like it. And especially when you're at 7180. But when you start getting down under 7150, we kind of held under there a little bit this morning. And then this 7120 area, this is kind of what I was talking about. Avis. Okay, I got you.
Oh, I see what happened here.
But I do. This is, if this holds, this is just an extension of the back and fill pattern. It's 30 points, lower from 7150 down to 7120. And if I had seen this when I was on, I would have been trying to buy that down there.
You cycle followers, right? You guys who follow cycle, you guys know we posted it earlier in the pit. Today's cycle day 1, and we all know what cycle day 1 is about, right? On cycle day 1, we typically get one good pullback, right? That just kind of resets the 3-day cycle. So we can't be too surprised that this move down here lower. I could have done a better job of highlighting that pre-market, but I just assumed that everyone knew it. I have to keep in mind that we have new folks watching.
Bueller says 7120 is a key cycle 1-day target.
Okay. Yep. Okay, Bueller. Thank you for that. Good job, bud.
We've had we got up to the 72. I can't even pull down the chart, but so we've had a 50-point pullback, basically 52-point pullback, and those kind of pullbacks, I think, are the kind of pullbacks you look to buy. But who knows? It's so fluid, Manny. I mean, it's all this kind of news-related banging that they're doing. Let's see what Tommy's got. Let's see what chart he pulled up. Yeah.
So I figured out what happened here. I had a rogue order out there that actually worked out. I'm going to take these 7 points and call it right here. I don't want to overstay my welcome on a trade that I didn't execute myself. So doing that. All right, guys. So yeah, we got the move. We got a good thrusty move lower. Let's see where this ends up. I think that you still have to, I understand the quickness of this move, but we have to stay. I think we have to stay focused on the larger trend. I'm sure there'll be a pullback in here somewhere, but cycle day 1s typically have one good down move. We'll see where this one ends up. I have a good support. Let's see, it's on a plan that I think if we get down there, I'm just gonna, I'll just buy it. Let's see, it is, 7103 to 7107. If we see that, I'm buying them. I'll probably just have a limit order sitting there. Just buy 7103, 7107, and at least have something on. Maybe just buy 1 or 2. We'll see. Hopefully we get there. I think that level's solid. That would change the entire book. There's a lot of interest in that area.
Stu, let me look at an Avis chart. I don't know. Oh, wow, I see this. My sister was actually an executive at Avis for many years.
Really?
Yeah. But they got bought out. I think they get bought out a bunch of different times. I think they did. I don't know. Let's go 5-day. Oh, wow. That's gone up quite a bit, Stu, right? Monthly. Jesus, gone up a real lot. I don't really have an opinion, Stu. I'm just not I haven't followed it enough to really have a handle on that.
Let's take a look at Avis here. What's the ticker? AVS?
Car.
Oh. Oh, smokes. Jesus
Yeah.
Christ. What is going on here? Wow. Oh, look at this though. I mean, this looks like the VIX.
Stu,
Oh,
what
dude.
is the story on that?
Yeah, what's going on there?
Jesus Christ.
Let's see if we can get the inside skinny on this one.
That's all right. Wow. I haven't seen that. That's a gigantic move.
That's a massive, massive move right there.
But then again, I'm wondering if that's not another.
Oh, you know what that looks like? It kind of had like that GameStop type of. I wonder if that's a
Exactly. That's
overly
exactly
short
what I was gonna
interest.
say. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Short, like a
And
short squeeze, right?
if you look at if you look at a yearly, I mean, it was trading like 89 to 208, but there a lot of that was traded around the 150 level, and maybe it traded down to 84 and change on 223. So that's not that long ago. That's a huge move. But you may be right, Manny. I don't know. What is the story on this?
It's probably a short squeeze. It looks like some type of, I mean, that's not so. Nobody's going to be buying a car dealer that much, right? Like, I mean, a car rental stock. That's got to be like a GameStop situation. I don't know. We'll see.
I've got a stock I've been buying quietly here.
Which one's that?
I'll pull it up. It's an ETF. It's a gold miners ETF.
Okay.
That pays a very, very high dividend. And let me pull it up. It's GDXY. And let's see, get the chart up. And again, I'm not suggesting people buy this. I mean, everybody should trade their own what they think. But this stock pays like 1% dividend a week.
Jesus.
Yeah.
What ticker is that?
It's a gold miners stock.
What's the symbol?
GDXY. I'm trying to get it in here.
Man, this is nice. I like this. $14. Pay the 1% dividend. The chart looks like shit, though. I have to be honest with you.
Yeah, but the thing is that even if it goes down 20 or 30%, which it's probably not going to do.
No.
Let me get it.
Hey, real quick heads up on the ES, guys. So, hey, I just want to point something out, right? Just circling back. So we were looking for our time study, right? We were looking for a low between 10:15 and 10:45, and I alerted you guys, say, hey, let's trade later in that window. So it looks like the low came in really late today at 11 o'clock. Sometimes it paints outside. There's a standard deviation window for these. But more importantly, now what we're looking at, switch back to the visual, and let's just stay focused on the next pivot, which is a high pivot somewhere in between 11. Center time is 11:40. So we're in that window now, 11:20 to 12 o'clock. We should be getting a high pivot. And the way I'm going to execute on that is I'm looking for any retest of this high right now at 71.45. If I can get in somewhere close to there, right, where my back's up against that, I'll try to trade that.
Yes, Jeff, that's an ETF. And I started buying it at like 13.85. And what I've got is a scale in, and I'm not trying to load up at any one level. I'm going to put a fair amount of money as far as I'm concerned when it comes to this stuff. I'm going to probably have about 150,000 or $200,000 worth of this stock. And again, it's a dividend play. You know, it's what you get. I don't. Gold miners are going to be around for a long time. They're not going anywhere. Let's see. Manny, sure, Trey.
Hey guys, heads up though. So Trey's part of our swing traders group, and he just has an idea he'd like to share. I'm trying to see if we can get him to jump on.
Yeah, let's bring him in.
Yeah, so let's see if he's ready. I just shot him the message, but always trying to add more value. Okay, so he's gonna hop on 11:30.
Cool,
Perfect.
cool.
Yep, that's cool. That'll work. Thanks, Trey.
You know, I'd like to get Rev back in here to talk about oil and stuff.
Yeah, so Rev is coming in weekly now. We're trying to get him on the weekly schedule, but I'm going to work that out with him. Hopefully we can get Rev in here tomorrow. Rev, if you're listening, we're going to give you that weekly summit. Okay. Yeah, let's wait for Trey to come in at 11. And I kind of like I prefer to spread that content out throughout the week.
Yeah.
I don't want to shoot my load. I don't want to shoot my load too early.
Has Handel been in much lately?
Handel's on coming on Thursday. He's gonna come on Thursday, right? So look out for that, guys.
Yeah. The only thing I can think when he comes on is what I hear in the background. This is what it sounds like.
Yep.
He's not that fast. He doesn't go like this. He goes,
Yep. That's Rev. I mean, that's Handel for sure.
yeah, he's selling. He's put his home up for sale. He's lived in a big home. It's just he and his wife.
Oh,
And they've been fixing, painting, and cleaning and packing things up. I think the stagers are here, and then he's going to his niece's wedding in Mexico for leaving, I think, Friday or Saturday. So he'll be gone for a couple days.
Yeah, he said I can't wait till my kids get older and move out so I can dump this big house. It's just more, yeah, you just accrue more shit, you know, there's more rooms to clean, more bathrooms to clean. Like I just, you know, and then we only live in like half of the house.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, big houses are overrated.
Well, I've talked about that on my X live streams recently. Even if I had a huge amount of money, I would never move into a gigantic house. There's just no way.
Yeah. What me and my wife want to do is once the kids move out, once the kids are off to college, we want to, you know, we're just going to move into a condo, doorman service, you know, let them handle the lawn.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what Handel wanted to do. And then his wife came in yesterday and found a smaller house that's in between both his, geez, Marty. I can't talk to him right now. Like a townhome, like right close to downtown Denver, so that they could get out and walk around like something like, you know, downtown Delray or where you live, where you can go and hit restaurants and shops and stuff like that. But yeah, if you don't, I mean, Marty lives in I don't know, is it 11,000 square foot home?
Jeez, that's got to be like what, 6-7 bathrooms? Screw that.
Yeah. And the thing is that it's only he and his wife.
Oh my God. They probably have wings they haven't been to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not, yeah. I the bathrooms too, like more bathrooms just get more dirty.
Moved to a condo during COVID. Never going. It's very smart, T.O.
Smart. Yeah.
You know, I mean,
smart move there.
I think that, you know, when I was on the floor, one of the big mistakes that a lot of the guys made, and this would go for Louis and Joey Borsellino too. You know, they bought these mega big homes. A lot of guys own. Bislow had a huge home in Lake Forest, and you know, The kids move. It's like what you said. The kids move out, and then you got this monstrosity. I mean, I think Pitbull's wife wanted him. There's really, really beautiful Ritz Carlton, like 40-floor mega building in West Palm. And it's got all the amenities. I mean, if you had a lot of money, I still probably wouldn't do that. I mean, they're probably 7, 10, 15 million. But you've got stores in there, you've got health clubs, you've got doctors' offices. I mean, it's just all in one mega building, and there's a couple of them. I know that his wife Audrey was saying to him, "Why don't we move there?" And he was like, "I'm never moving there. I'm staying in my house." But the upkeep of the house is, it's on the ocean, and they replaced.
That's a lot of wear and tear on it.
I mean, I believe he replaced the windows a couple of years ago. It was like $1.5 million, $2 million to replace the windows. Forget about it. I mean,
that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah. I guess if you got it, flaunt it, but that's not me,
Yeah, I've never had that luxury.
No, I've never had that luxury either. And like I said, even if I did, I wouldn't do that. And that's something that I talk about a lot, And, when Bitcoin started going up and everybody's driving around in Lamborghinis and, that there's something going to blow up when you do that. It just always works out. It does.
Yep.
And there's a lot of guys I always talk about the NASDAQ futures, in a lot of my live streams. And there's a couple particular guys that have big followings on Twitter and similar setups to what we had. And they're, he's always complaining about, well, after I made all this money, I bought the big home. I bought, spent a couple $1 million. And well, you're always, one of the things about the guys on the floor, they never planned ahead, Manny. Nobody ever planned ahead. It was like, make 200 grand in a day, go spend 100 of it, There's Marlon. Hey, Marlon.
Hey, Marlon, how's it going?
Yeah, I don't know. Is there more news out there? I mean, I don't. Nobody's
I'm on
really
alert. I'm kind of. Let's see. Let's do a live squawk is offering up. All right, let's get that going. Hard to think. Hey, so look, heads up. Let's dial in on the ES real quick for everyone watching. Hey, so we got double H patterns, right? Look at this. Double H patterns. That's definitely not an easy pattern to like. These patterns don't follow through very often. So what I'm talking about H is this, right? So wait, hang on. Let me get my little marker here. Okay. So you got down and then it comes up. Usually you get a trap right here. So now we've done it twice. Now coming down, up. Just be careful down here. Just be careful. See this H, right? It's hard to get. I mean, if we're super bearish, that's the follow through. But yeah, we want to sell that 1120 high. I sold a couple of micros because I was distracted by that other long. Nothing big there. 4 micros. So it's certainly not going to. I mean, it's lunch money. Got to pay for lunch too, though. And with the way inflation is now, I mean, shit.
I didn't see this. Did the U.S. forces boarded a tanker?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Signals. I really like the Wall Street Journal. I mean, I don't know if other people like it, but at times they have pretty clean news.
Right. They have good writers, good stuff there. But I don't know. I don't trust any news now. Like independent journalism is where I like to have my focus, right? So have you ever used that news site called Ground News?
No,
Yeah,
is
that's
that
a
pretty
good
good?
site, man. It kind of gives, so it'll look at all the news releases and kind of tell you what their lean is and what their bias is, so you know, right? So if you get one news story, right, you might want to read it with the right's lean, and then you might want to read what the left is saying about it, and then kind of make your decision.
Now, we love Live Squawk. Trade the News has always been pretty good. A lot of good news services out there. But yeah, it looks like this story came out at 11:16. U.S. forces board tanker as Iran's mixed signals cast uncertainty over talks. U.S. boarded a oil tanker in the Indo-Pacific region. It doesn't say if it's an Iranian tanker, but this is the kind of stuff that we see every day, right? I mean,
Yeah, and we kind of highlighted in the pre-market prep, right, where our idea, like we know we reached that 100% extension of the second move, typical formation for a wave 3. So let's see, and a cycle day 1, right? So yeah, there's certainly some conditions, some tools that we have here that can help us get understand why we're moving lower.
Yeah.
I mean, the monster rally, right? We have how many green days in a row? Let's just count them. Let's just count them out right here, right? Let me just see. Let's just look. I think it's cleaner on SPX. So let me just look at that. Looking for the target 71.24 on that short, guys. So heads up on that. I'm kind of distracted right now. Look, how many green days in a row? All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 out of 15 days we closed above the open. That's pretty frothy, right? That's pretty decent. And even on the down days, right? The down days were more sideways than anything else. We just closed below the open. But on the down days, we closed below the open, but we didn't close below the prior day, right? So that's bullish AF. That's just straight bullish price action.
I would imagine you got a lot of stops under this low. And we just made a higher low, but we're not too far off the lows.
Yeah, let me go. Let me zoom out here. Let me get my favorite time frame 2-hour chart. Yeah, so the big difference maker there, guys, is if we get below that Sunday night low at 70.85, right? I think that's where these decisions are going to be made. I'm expecting some support coming in at 71.05. Hang on. I'm expecting some major support at 71, 7100, 7110. Let's call it. It's actually the exact price is 7103 to 7107. So heads up there.
This is another little setup I like watching when you see a low and you go down and you retest and you don't take it out.
Yeah, yep. I'm going to appeal right here. I hate to touch trades before they have a completion, right? But in this event, I'm just gonna close it out.
I call that the Riley retest.
The Riley retest.
So you got Tio coming in at 11:30.
That's what he said.
I'm just clicking on that. Can you hear me, guys?
Okay, cool.
Yeah, we got you on audio, Trey. Thanks for stopping in.
Yep.
I'm
gonna jump out, and thanks for having me in, Manny.
No, thanks for stopping by, Danny. Appreciate the support.
No problem.
Take care.
You're doing a great job too.
Thank you, sir.
You got it.
How you doing, Manny? Give me just 1 second. I'm navigating some of the technical issues here.
You're good. We're not going anywhere.
Damn it. I want to share my screen. Camera microphone. I'm doing something wrong. There it is. Image required. How you doing, Manny?
Good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Started off the morning with a shiner. I think it was like 5 or 6 points. Made that back, so I'm quite happy about that.
Very nice.
Yep.
feel free to play a straight man or hit me with any questions or anything like that. But I wanted to talk a little bit about what's very topical in the stock world right now. Let me come over. You can see. All right, that's playing it. You're futures only, are you not?
I am. Yep, I am.
Okay.
Futures only.
So you may not have seen the insanity that is this. Avis budget rent a car that I have something. I'm gonna post this in the room.
Yep. Danny, your camera's still on, Danny. Heads up.
Okay, all right.
Looking good though. I want to share a link in the chat from the Short Bear, which discusses what's going on here. It does a really good job of talking about the components of the short squeeze. So I'll share that right here. Anyone who's trafficking something like this, if you can get this kind of information, it's incredibly helpful. Drop that right here. Oops. Read that. But basically, this is an engineered short squeeze where two hedge funds both had large positions, then put on a swap position with, I'm not sure, the prime broker, and took their effective holdings to over 100%. And there was just a small catalyst of expectations when the Iran war started that, and it was TSA related, I guess, more than the Iran war. But between Iran war and high gas prices and TSA, people not wanting to fly, a theory went around everyone's going to try and rent cars to drive. At least that's the excuse. But the effective thing is this stock has gone from $100 in mid to late March to it ticked 740 today, which is unbelievable. And it's traded 5.3 million shares today, and it's just trading like water. So obviously great if you can catch the long. That's not what I'm going to discuss today. A lot of people have been stabbing short, the entire way up with very limited success, myself included. I have a setup that I developed back in kind of the 2020, 2021, manic bull market where we saw a bunch of these.
Oh man, that was great.
This is Newegg. This went. Kodak was the original. I'll pull this up. You can see, we get these crazy spikes. MMAT was another really big one that's still notorious, that caught a bunch of people. But I did this probably 12 to 15 times in about a year, right in this time frame, just because there was so much mania with COVID and everyone staying home and treating their brokerage accounts like a FanDuel account. And we saw a bunch of these setups. So we have not seen a lot. Circle was the last chance I did when it came public I thought it was last fall, but it's been longer ago than that. You can see it came public at like 70 and ran to 270 in just over a week or so. That also had the setup for what I call it's a trade. I literally have my playbook. I call it the high IV fade, and I think I can pull. I can't. All right, I'll show this again in a minute. But one of the requirements I use for this trade is IV, implied volatility for options traders. When you have these stocks that go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 500% in a short amount of time, implied volatility follows it. And I have a table that I'm going to try and pull into my screen share that shows the implied volatility of these options roughly at the money are approaching 400%, 365, 367, 370, depending on the specific contract you're looking at. And when I was shorting them earlier this morning, the stock was around 700. It was over 400% implied volatility. Let me take just a second on that. The way that I think about it, I know it's not exactly mathematically correct, but I use it just as a thought framework, is the annualized return for the period of the contract. i.e., I'm looking at Friday contracts, Friday, April 24th, and it would have to appreciate at an annualized 400% rate of return from here for the calls to go in the money. So anyone who's trading options really, really, really needs to understand implied volatility. And from some of the conversations I see on Twitter and social media, a lot of people don't. Do not trade options if you don't understand IV. And the second really big caveat before I get into like talking about the specifics of this trade is the way that I do this. I'm naked short calls. I'm functionally short stock. People think options offers you some security and some things like that. But the structure of this trade, if the stock goes up $10, I'm out $10, and more in its trading. It was up 130 at one point today. So you just need to understand these risks and these components before you even think about doing a trade like this. With that said, my batting average on these is over 80%.
Wow.
When it works, it's a very, very effective trade. And the high IV gives just such a huge margin for error. And it'll surprise next to no one that the two that I can think of that didn't really work out were AMC and GME back when they went. They were the exception to the rule. Other than that, this is a very, very effective trade. And I'll talk about two components. One is the setup, and that is a stock that has gotten extremely extended over a short amount of time. I would argue 700% in a month qualifies. And then the high IV component, i.e., I'm selling contracts with a huge margin for error. I'm in the 650 calls, which I entered this morning at $112 per contract, meaning the stock needs to go to $762 for me to lose money. And it was about 670 or 680 at the time. So that gave me, not quite $100 margin for error. That's why I have the high batting average, that right there. And then the last component, I was probably 20 to 30 minutes early this morning, but those were a very uncomfortable 20 to 30 minutes. It looks now, I'm feeling much better about it. There's still, the last trigger that I'm looking for is rejection. People who do market profile, and I'm sure you understand that, Manny, you get a big push up and then it just can't hold and it rejects down. So what has to happen for me to be successful right here is the stock close below 650 by close of business on Friday, and I'll make $112 a share. I'm not going to say without risk, but I had about this much adverse experience. It moved against me 670, 680 up to here once briefly on the stop. Actually, let me come down to a much shorter time frame, and I can show how quickly. So we went up. I think I got involved right around here, and I was feeling really good. We had this very brief gap up, and I was watching. I theoretically need to stop. If this goes out the top, my 762, certainly if it goes through that, I stop it, and I would absolutely be taking a loss there. It never got within 15 points of that. And then it's been downhill ever since. This is great. So there's a couple of ingredients that are coming together for me. One, price coming down, one, IV coming down, and the last one, time coming down. I have all of those components that I sold at a high price, a high IV, and time is going to work in my favor. I have to tighten it up, but I wanted to walk through the setup, which is the huge move higher, the trigger, which is the parabolic move. Let me come out here and do time. This is better. You can see the fairly steady, incredibly steep rise. And then this is a 50 period moving average on the 30-minute chart. And we accelerated away from here yesterday. So overnight, I was watching it and like, hey, am I going to see what I need in the morning to get this going? Pre-market, we were up, I think, 110 points, came down, and then we started getting our gap ups in the morning. This, to me, is very climactic behavior. This is, okay, it's a trigger, it's a setup, and give myself plenty of margin for error. I shorted the 650s when the stock was about 670. As I said, slightly in the money. That was a decision to get like a little bit more juice so that I get paid on 20 points of downside. And when we pushed up towards over 700, I was thinking I'm not going to increase my position on this. But the 750s were over $100 a contract when the stock was only 710, 715. So that's like 160 points of margin for error. that's just incredibly attractive to me.
Right.
So,
So if you so you won't add to that, like once it goes above the high and then comes back in, that's not, you're just going to stick with the same position, right?
I'm going to stick with the same position because this is a little too resilient for me, honestly. In the past, what I really want to see is this climactic move and then follow through lower. I haven't seen that. I'm not going to do it when I'm getting adverse experience and just like, hey, I'm going to lean in on this. I'm in a very small position here. I'm not, this is not, hey, I want to hit a home run. It's just a nice, easy trade. If I can catch, 112 points on 2-3 contracts in 3 or 4 days, that's plenty. I don't want to have size on in something like this.
Yeah,
because, this was in 5 minutes. It moved from 644 to 730, and there was a gap in there that's important. That's my uncomfortable adverse experience. But you can see only a couple of minutes later, I was back and comfortably in the money.
Right.
I want to emphasize the time frame here. You certainly can day trade this. It has all the volatility in the world, but the way I'm structuring it is I am letting a little bit of time work for me, i.e. I sold the Friday calls. I need to see a couple of things, i.e. closing near the lows and real rejection of higher prices to keep this position overnight. But that's where I'll get a lot of bang for my buck. Just let all this super high expectations, this very strong price movement in time just work for me and let it all bleed out. And I just want to highlight like my batting average of over 80%. It really works, but you just have to be very, very, very patient in the setup. Who was it? Stu who asked the question. Yes, I have been following it closely. I took a couple of small shots short, I'll say middle of last week, and was not getting the action. I can't remember off the top of my head, but this was probably one. And we had a little dip here. I sold out of the money. And when we were closing right near the highs at the end of the day, I'm not getting the rejection that I want. This tells me get out. It's not ready. I lost $1,000, something, relatively small relative to the size I trade. Not bad at all. I tried one other time and then I said, nope, leave it alone. This is not acting the way I want. Saw yesterday the acceleration away. And this morning, the gap up and everything. This is what I'm looking for. And I am still getting what I'm looking for. We're trading below VWAP. You can see it right here in the purple. And holding here. 650 has held a few times. I posted in, I think, this chat that I really thought we'd bust through if he broke it. It didn't. We do still have demand here. The trade is still working for me. I've got time and IV coming down, but I'm not getting the price, reversal that I'm looking for. That tells me that I'm probably going to get back out of this in this action right here. If we push above VWAP, I'm going to take it back off. It's just not as climactic. It's not selling off the way that I want to see. And this will be just like, okay, look, made a couple of bucks, stay safe, and I'm going to get another chance in this thing. Sorry, hit the mic. That's basically wanted to highlight. Manny, if you have any questions, just
I love those repeatable trades, especially when a stock is making a move like that, right? You know it's going to come in, right? Nothing goes in that direction that long forever. To apply a setup to it. I've never been able to apply a setup to those types of movements. I just kind of watch, but that's interesting how you execute.
Yes. So thanks. There's a little bit of blood, sweat, tears, and pain behind it.
Oh, I'm sure every setup has that.
Yes, but the real key elements are climactic action, acceleration. When you see this thing really getting parabolic, that's telling you that somebody is just experiencing so much pain. They're like, let me out, get me out.
Right.
And followed through higher. And now we're getting, it's still early. It's 11:45 in the morning. A lot can happen between now and 4. But this is the beginning of rejection. Quite frankly, I would like to see much more follow through lower. There's somebody still bidding this stock. So it might not be done, and we might be trying this again tomorrow or Thursday or something. But this action tells me we're within a couple of days of the top. And then the question is, how much can this come in? A lot of people ask me why I don't put a risk reversal or buy puts or buy downside. You certainly can. But when I'm clipping $112 in 3 or 4 days, I'm fine. And I just don't want the complications. I don't get greedy. What I do when this starts to work down is I'll wait, I'll wait till Thursday or Friday. I've gotten 60, 70, 80% of my position, profits, and then look to re-enter lower. If the action is confirming it, I can go, and then I sold the 650s this morning. Say making it up, it rolls down to 5 to 25 by late Thursday, switch to maybe the 600s or the 550s, depending on where they are, and go out a week. And again, I'm just trying to sell the upside. I think about going through a cycle with these. Sorry, I'm changing subject a little bit. The first thing when you're facing a strong market, you don't start shorting, you start fighting it. I'll sell upside. I'll say, okay, I'm willing to get short higher, but I'm not, trying to take that position. If this starts to roll over, and yeah, there's a lot of reason to think that there's follow through lower, that's when I'll quote unquote buy downside or short stock or buy puts or something. Right now, this parabolic move, this setup is sell upside, capture the premium, wait for it to set up, and then there'll be plenty of chances for this thing to return to, say 300 and be up only, 200% in a month. That's a lot of downside to capture, and I don't need to be first in on it. So yeah, very repeatable. You need a certain market environment. 2021 was fantastic. This market, much, much, much less so. Like I said, the last one I did was Circle, I think last summer, and this is the first one I've seen in months. It's just a great setup to have in your playbook when you do see this and you want to think about, like, how do I take advantage of this parabolic stock? So
yeah, those nuanced setups. I have another buddy who trades equities, and he has an IPO strategy, right? So IPO day, and I can't remember the specific setup, right? But I know that he applies that setup on new issues, and it works fairly well for him. And it's a repeatable setup, and that speaks to what I was mentioning earlier in the stream, to have multiple clubs in your bag, right? Make sure that it's good to have more than one setup. Not all of them are going to perform great every day, but when you have multiple tools you can apply, it kind of gives you a greater arsenal from which to shoot from.
Yeah, arrows in the quiver. That's exactly how I think about it. I've spent time. I'll do a brief endorsement of something. It's not certainly not a competitor, MrTopStep, but they do trading education and do a great job. SMB Capital, you can find it online and YouTube.
Oh, yeah, I interned there.
Did you really?
I did, yeah. Like, so when I right when I left Bloomberg, I wanted to trade, and I got an internship there. I didn't take the job though. I had a side business, and I kind of wanted to trade from home.
Sure.
Run my business, so that's what I did.
Okay, I was there for a couple of years. I know Bella and Steve and all those guys. I think they do a really great job with trading education. But
yeah, they do. So they had a small satellite office on Park Avenue South, and that's where I interned. That's where I shadowed them for a while. But yeah, I remember it's like and even in that short time, I learned a ton from those guys.
Yes, I love their concept of a playbook, which is exactly what you're talking about. It's like, I've got, for a really bullish market, I've got these plays. I've got these trading setups. For a choppy sideways market, I've got these setups. For a stock that's parabolic and just absolutely going through the roof, I've got this setup. And knowing what to look for in terms of market environment, stock action, everything like that, I'm going to go to a particular play in my playbook. And they literally go, and I do it. I've learned a lot from them. This is, I call it my high IV fade setup. And I have all the components I look for. It's here, and I track the success rate. It's a great way to go about trading and really raise your game.
Nice. Well, thanks for sharing that with us, Trey. Appreciate it.
Sure, my pleasure. Happy to take any questions in the chat or anything like that, but that I pretty much covered what I wanted to, and we are starting to get follow through lower right here. This is what I'm really looking for. I want to see it. Yeah, if we can take out this new low, I'll be very happy. This low, and then 600 is the next stop, and I'll be feeling very good.
What level is that?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
So I'm sorry. What level? Oh, look at that move. Never mind.
Yeah,
that's a good follow through. I think Stage 5 asked, how long did it take you to develop that setup?
That's a really good question. Shorter than a lot of them, in that this happened real time, and I'm going to answer the question. This is what I'm looking for. We just triggered a bunch of trailing stops. That's exactly what happened here. We went through this level, and a lot of short-term traders that were longs that were chasing this move are getting taken out right now. I think that we're not halted, but it's wow. Yeah, we're halted. Never mind. We are halted. So that's exactly what happened.
Oh, we got halted?
What I was hoping for.
Did that just happen?
Yep. Literally, I'm looking at the quote real time. Yep, we're halted. So that's what I was looking for. That's success right there. It was setting up. I was looking at 650 watching it just because it held there like 5, 6, 7 times right in here. It'll show on a 1-minute chart. This is 650 where it held. And then people obviously had a slightly different level in here, and boom, stops. So we got our 30-point drop, almost exactly what I was hoping for. And not surprisingly, holding this level here. There's going to be some bids, but this is a trading halt it's an order imbalance halt. It'll take 5 minutes and we'll get back going. If this follows through and the order imbalance opens lower, it's over as far as I'm concerned. This is a all clear sign if we can break this and hold down below this level. It's very possible we got some shorts will cover and take it and bid it back up, and then it will continue to trade sideways. But the next level for me to start, as I said, start thinking about buying downside is breaking this, pre-market level, the spike low, the volume peak. And if we get through that, I call it rejection. We pushed up higher, couldn't hold it, doing that, and we're going to start to accept lower prices, and my short calls will look great. Let me get back to whose question? Phase 5.
Yeah.
I actually would love to talk about this because I was at SMB when this happened, and Bella was really, being in my head.
So, Trey, I'm going to date myself. Sorry to interrupt you real quick, but I just wanted to chime in about SMB. So, back when, I think that was mid 2000s for me.
Okay.
And that guy was pretty active even back then. He was head honcho there. Smart dude, smart guy, good trader.
Smart guy, good trader, has cultivated. When I was there were 3 guys on the desk who made $18 million a year. He said, we have our top tier traders and they're doing incredibly different strategies, incredibly different things. And each one of them is booking 18 million a year. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yep, I'm not surprised.
I traded I know a couple other different shops in New York, and I don't know of anyone else that has that. So Bella, he's a good trader, but I think he's far better at trading education, and he's really focused in on that.
So those like equity prop shops, there were a ton of them in New York, right?
Yep.
And they were, the kind of like the lead ones, but a lot of those prop shops, would talk about SMB, and it would be, about they would wish that they could have one trader like that, and SMB had one.
Yes, 18 million is top tier, and for them to have multiple of them, and they've repeated it. There's a video of God, I can't think of his name. What is his name? I would love to point people to. Tell you what, I'll throw it in the chat in the pit room later today. A link to the video, but it's Shark is his nickname, and he's one of the guys who made $18 million. And he's talking to another guy who has cumulative trading profits over his career. I don't know what his best year was, of over $100 million. And it's an hour video, the two of them sitting and talking about, how they got good and what the work it took and some things like that. It's a great video that literally, I don't care if you're a 30-year experienced trader, which I am, I learned a ton from it. So I will drop a link in the pit chat as soon as I find it. I just want to wrap up Phase 5's question. This is Kodak back in July of 2020, which was peak COVID. The world was closed. We'd been trading in kind of a mania at the time. And I remember this very well. The Trump administration in kind of the last year, they're running for re-election and doing a bunch of things and dealing with COVID. And Kodak, which was, the sleepy former film company at the time got a $700 million loan from the Trump administration to become a drug manufacturer. They were going to make the pre-ingredients for not a vaccine. I can't remember what we were treating COVID with at the time. Not ivermectin, but something like that. And the stock just absolutely went nuts. And I started, and you can see it was $2 on Monday, July 27th, and it peaked at $60 on Wednesday. 2 to 60 in 2 days. And that, on news, a $700 million loan, it added, I'm going to make up the numbers because I don't remember, like $10+ billion in equity market cap, i.e. 15 to 20 times the size of the loan in market cap. And I know just a little about how hard it is to go through the FDA process and be approved for manufacturing drugs. It takes years. There's incredibly high levels of scrutiny to make sure that you're doing it accurately. And the idea that this Rochester, New York film company could just overnight become a key drug manufacturer was just impossible. So I was looking to short it aggressively, and I got in very well. And I do have experience with options. That's why I started looking at it that way. And I just focused on the IV. And for the first time ever, usually in normal trading, an IV of 100 is pretty high. It happens, like Tesla when it's going crazy in the olden days, not now when it's a $3 trillion company or whatever.
Yeah.
You'd see $100 IV, not dollar. I saw a 500 IV in Kodak when the stock was up. I don't even know what that is. What's 2 to 60? 3,000% in 2 days. Jesus. And then to expect an annualized return of 500% from here between Wednesday and Friday.
Oh man, that's a layup.
That's a layup. So the stock was 60 right here. I sold $70 calls for, I'd have to look it up, but I think like 12 or 15 bucks. I had $22 around margin for error right there. And then you can see how this just collapsed in, so this is the Friday, and it came back down to like $22. So these 3 days are where I learned the setup or developed the setup. It's pretty easy to say, hey, yeah, I'm going to sell out of money calls, but I really firmed up the methodology. I saw the rejection I was looking for. I saw this move higher where I gave myself stops, and then I saw the follow through lower. And I happened to be working with one of the best education guys on the street who really gave me the structure to think through the ingredients I needed, market environment, a specific setup, specific catalysts, specific things. So this is an exception in that a bunch of things came together in just a couple of days. And then I was able to apply it to some of these other names that were all going nuts at the same time. So that was July. This one wasn't before. No, July 21. That's later. So anyway, I hope that helps answer the question. It usually does take longer than that. It usually does take examining, multiple iterations of a specific setup that I'm looking for. But this one came together really quickly. So, and someone asked about Shark, Jeff 272 Shark. Yeah, the guy's name is Kenny Sharpness, and just everyone in the shop calls him Shark. It's his nickname. So yes, and I know you got a link for SMB. That's all I got on that. I'm happy to take any other questions and shoot the fat with you, Manny, but I pretty much covered what I wanted to.
Yeah, no, thanks. I appreciate that. We typically wind down at about 11:30, but I wanted to come on and kind of get that going for the folks watching and for the people in the pit. So thanks, appreciate that. And we're gonna I'm gonna wind this down now, guys. We ran a little bit over today. Hopefully you guys learned something from Trey's setup. I'm definitely gonna be rewinding this and rewatching it to make sure I get the particulars right. But awesome trade, good job, Trey.
Thanks very much. Good to talk to you. And yeah, thanks very much for having me on. I will drop the link of that chat in your chat for anyone who wants to take a look at it. And there's a bunch of things related to it you can explore.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, Trey. All right, guys. That's going to wrap it up for me today. Thanks for stopping by. Hopefully we not the best day for me. I'm P&L wise, I'm a, let's see. So 15, that's 24, and then 17. Yeah, I'm like a $300 P&L today. Not where I want to be, but going into lunch, I'm not going to sit here and kind of bang my head against the wall. Still got the afternoon trades kind of set up, and hopefully get some opportunities there. But thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate you.